Project, we are going to learn all about gouache art. So gouache is a paint medium which is kind of in between acrylic and watercolor medium. It has both the features of acrylics and watercolors. Gouache is similar to watercolors in that it can be re-wetted and revived, but it is also like acrylic as it dries to a matte finish. It's a beautiful medium and has been very trendy these days amongst the artist community. Gouache paints can be used for illustrations, nature paintings, posters, and comics and other design work as well. Gouache generally dries to a value that differs from the one it has when it's wet, like the lighter tones generally dry darker and the darker tones tend to dry. So the first thing that we are going to learn is how to get the right consistency of gouache. So this sketchbook has a little bit of texture which is great for gouache, and I am taking my gouache over here. So we will be learning how to get different finishes with gouache by adding or decreasing the amount of water of your paint. We will be needing a palette, so I'll be taking a palette along with me and I will be showing you how you can get different finishes with the gouache paints. So I have all my materials with me ready and I will be taking a flat brush. A flat brush is very versatile. It will give you even and bold patches of paints, so it is a must-have when you are doing gouache paintings. You'll also need a rough cloth or a tissue paper for cleaning your wet brushes. So first things first, we will be learning how transparency and opaqueness can be achieved with gouache. We have to make sure that ratio of the paint and water is very important over here. So I am going to take this blue shade with my paintbrush and I will show you how to get a semi-transparent finish with the help of gouache. Over here I have taken some gouache paint and I will be adding a few drops of water, around 2 to 3 drops of water to my paint. Now as I lay my paintbrush on the paper, you can see there is a semi-transparent finish. I can see a little bit of opaqueness, but there is definitely the paper or the surface peeking through. So this one was our semi-transparent finish. I will try adding more water to my paint and I will try to get a transparent finish so as to show you how you can get a transparent finish with a gouache paint. I dipped my brush in my water and mixed it with my paint to get a transparent finish. You can see that the more water you add to the paint, the more transparency you achieve. So that's how we can get the transparent finish of gouache. You can see that the first one was semi-transparent, but the second one is really more transparent because you can see a lot of white in the background which is of the paper. Now I will take some more paint and add only 1 or 2 drops of water to it, and I will make sure that the paint is not very liquidy or watery. When I am mixing my paint in my palette, you can even tilt the palette to see that your paint is thick or not. If I am tilting my palette a little bit, you can see that the previous paint that was mixed, which was a little watery, is going to drip, but the second time that I have mixed the thick paint, it is not falling or dripping down. So this is what opaqueness in gouache paints means. You have to make sure that when you are making gouache paintings, you have to get the opaque finish. So to achieve that opaqueness, you have to remember that the ratio of the paint is to water is always 1:1, which means the both amount of water and the paint should be equal. So you will get a yogurt or a cream-like consistency of your paint, which is giving you an opaque finish. So this was all about the transparency and opaqueness of gouache. Remember that the consistency of the paint that you mix matters a lot. The paint mixture shouldn't be too dry or too liquidy over here. The paint and the water should be equally mixed. And always remember that gouache paintings will have a mattifying opaque finish. So you can see that gouache can also be used as watercolors as well. As you can see in the transparent finish, we can get a watercolor like finish which is transparent enough. So you can use gouache as transparent watercolors as well. You can make watercolor paintings with gouache by adding more water as we do in the watercolors, but when we are making the original gouache paintings, we have to make sure that we are getting the opaqueness. So let us know what are ombres and gradients. So this is the second thing that we will be learning when it comes to gouache. It is very important to learn these two terms and how they are used in paintings. So what is ombre and what is a gradient? I will be telling you the difference and I'll be showing you how to make them. So basically, ombres are usually the blending of hues of the same color progressing from light to dark or dark to light. And gradients are a progression of two or more colors from light to dark or dark to light. So always remember that ombre has a single color and gradients have multiple colors in them. So first I'll be showing you how to make an ombre. So always remember that when you want to make your paint lighter in the gouache art, you have to add white to your paint mixture. Unlike the watercolors where you mix a lot of water to make your color lighter, in gouache you have to make the color lighter with a white paint. I have taken some of my crimson red on my palette and I will be getting a cream-like consistency by adding a couple of drops of water to my paint, and I will be thoroughly mixing them so that I do not have any kind of lumps or clots in my paint. So my first stroke will be the darkest color, so I am not adding any white to it. So here my ombre is going to be from dark to light. So on the top part I will have darker hues of the shade pink, and then as I go down I will move ahead with a lighter tone. So with the help of my palette knife I am taking some of my white to the palette. So little by little I'll be adding the white to my crimson red. So I'm taking a hint of white and mixing it with my crimson red, and I'm getting a beautiful pinkish red tone, and I will be applying my stroke with that, taking more white and adding it to the red. So as you can see that as I'm going down, I'm adding more and more white to get a lighter tone than the above one. So as you are going down, you have to remember that you also have to blend all these strokes to get a smoother finish. Here as you can see I have done 3 to 4 strokes. Now I'll be taking my paintbrush and going to blend it. You have to remember that you have to blend with a very light hand and not do it rigorously. So now I want my ombre to have even more lighter shades. So for that I'll be washing my brush thoroughly and taking some of my white and mixing a tinge of red. As we go lighter, you will need more white and less of the color that you are using. So as you can see, I am using very less red and more of white, and I will be blending it on the upper part. If you feel that your darker shade or the lighter shade is trying to overpower the other tones or the shades of the color, you can always clean your brush with the rough cloth and then blend with a lighter hand. So I want my top part to be darker, so I have taken some more of my crimson red and tried blending it so to get the darker tone on the top. I will also add a little bit of more white in the bottom and will blend it nicely. So that is what an ombre is. You can see there is a progression of the crimson red which goes from the darker to the lighter tone. So let us move ahead with the gradient. So now for the gradient you will have to follow the same steps that we did for the ombre initially. So I have made an ombre of the same crimson red over here as you can see, and I followed the same steps. You have to remember that in gradient you have multiple colors. So I have made a smaller ombre over here of the crimson red. So I am going to take two colors. One is the crimson red and the ombre of that is done. Now we will be taking a golden yellow color, and with the help of a clean brush I'll take some golden yellow in my palette, and I will be starting from the bottom. So I've taken some of my yellow paint over here and I'll be starting from the bottom. So like we learned in the ombre, the first stroke will be the darker one, and as I go upwards I will be adding white to it. So I'm taking a tinge of white and will be blending it. I'm following the same steps that I did for the ombre, which is the addition of white as we go forward. Once I touch the ombre of the pink, I will try to take a little bit of white and will blend the middle portion to achieve my gradient and get a smoother finish of both the shades. So the white paint plays an important role in gouache paint. As you can see, it helps us blend gradients, it helps us to achieve lighter shades of a particular color. So this was how we got our beautiful gradient of the crimson red and golden yellow color. So this was all about ombres and gradients. These two terms are very important to learn because they will be very helpful when you are creating nature paintings or sky paintings with gouache paints. One thing to remember is that the gradients are not just limited to two colors. You can add more colors and get an even more longer gradient of your liking. You just have to make more and more ombres and mix them up with the other ones and create your own gradient. It is very easy to do that. You can even practice more and more color combinations that you like. So after learning all the basics, let's move ahead with our gouache painting that we are going to create today. So I have all my materials with me and I have taken my watercolor paper, and we will be starting with a gouache painting now. So I have taken all my materials with me and we can quickly start with our painting now. This painting, as I said initially, that it is going to be a customized painting that you may gift to your loved ones. So I am taking the